Good morning, everybody. This is Deborah Psychology Services, known across social media as Dbpsychology, and today I'm going to be talking about this week's blog, which is all about enabling our adult children. So I'm going to preference this by saying I'm not talking about a disabled child, adult child, nor am I talking about a child who may become ill as an adult and will need your support then. Use your common sense with regards to what I'm talking about this morning. The only thing I will say about disabled children, adult children is, and I'm guilty of this too, is to question maybe whether you're doing too much for them. Maybe they can do a little bit more. We just have to keep as a parent of a disabled child, I have to keep checking in with myself. Am I doing things for them that they can do for themselves? So that's the only thing I'll say there. So enabling an adult child. Basically, the things I talk about in this blog, you could actually use with any adult. It doesn't have to be about your adult child. It's an enabling. Enabling is basically one adult saving another adult from the responsibilities or the consequences of their actions. So with that in mind, we have to understand that it doesn't start with an adult. It doesn't start with you being an adult and them being an adult. More likely than not, it will have started much, much earlier, usually in their from the time they're born, or it could start sometime in their teens when, things might go haywire or something might happen. You might get a divorce or something might happen within the family unit, and you fall into a pattern where you start doing little things. It builds up on you gradually, and then suddenly you realize, what's happened here? What's going on here? Something's wrong. I don't feel right. There's something going on. And then you realize you're enabling your child. Kids are brilliant, just like siblings, because siblings can do this too, at pushing our emotional buttons. So, if you have an adult sibling, they are brilliant at hooking you in and brilliant at pushing those emotional buttons. So we're talking about the guilt, the shame, the fear. They'll all hook us in, very strong emotions, and they'll hook you in and they'll push the right buttons. They'll know the exact words to say and you're hooked. And then you do stuff, and you do stuff maybe on automatic pilot without thinking about it. And you land, things get worse, or you're constantly rescuing, basically. So saying that, a lot of enabling can be codependency based, and I've talked about codependency before, so do check that out. But what I'm going to talk about today is, I'm not going to talk about the entire blog because I basically want you to go read it, but I'll talk about some of the red flags, and I will talk about how you can help yourself. Now, if you want to help your adult child, go and check out the blog. It's at www.dbpsychologyservice.com, and I do go into a list of things there you can do for your child. An adult, this is an adult we're talking about, that you can still do but not enable them. So the red flags, there's 13 red flags, but I'm going to talk about a few of them. The most common ones, I suppose, taking on the child's responsibility, the adult child. I keep saying child, but it's an adult we're talking about here. Adult's responsibility. So that could be paying their rent, bailing them out of debt, paying their debts, going into debt yourself, in order for them to have their lifestyle or to keep up their lifestyle. Allowing them to live in your home rent free, or not help around the home, doing their laundry, things like that. So think about it. Are you taking on those responsibilities that aren't really yours? Lending them money and knowing you'll never get it back. So, we can be guilty. We can all be guilty of that. Living in fear of saying no. Now, these are big ones. I picked these two out in particular. Living in fear of saying no because your child, what will happen if you say no to your child? And the other is living in fear of your child because it's really a domestic violence situation. A lot of people think you have to be married to somebody, or have a partner, you're living with them, to suffer domestic violence. No, it isn't. You can have domestic violence at the hands of an adult child. You can have domestic violence if you're dating somebody, or if teens are dating, they can have domestic violence can happen there too. So they're two really. You need to be very honest with yourself and look at that. Has it got to this level? And I'll come back to that in a moment. Your child only contacts you when they want something. They're disrespectful towards you. They are, they're only nice when they want something. You've got to ask yourself, why? Why is that? What am I doing wrong that they feel that that's the only way they can treat me? Usually, is you're enabling them. They show you no respect. The other one would be, and this is another big one, would be you're in constant chaos, or you're exhausted from the constant chaos of being with them, or after they leave, or living with them. If you're living with them and you're exhausted, you're constantly exhausted from the emotional, or in a lot of cases, this will come if they have an addiction. And that's why I say to you, about the codependency. It's if you are living with somebody, it can be very chaotic if they have some form of addiction. Now, remember, addictions don't just include the usual suspects of alcohol, drugs and gambling. Eating disorders are also classed as an addiction, and they need help. The thing I have to say about addictions is your child is beyond your help. Your child requires professional help. You require professional help. And in order to do perhaps an intervention with somebody, an adult, you may say, okay, I have to do an intervention with this person. I would recommend you first speak to a professional. You must speak to a professional first and get perhaps a treatment centre or a psychiatrist on board to help you on the day of the intervention. At least they will talk to you beforehand. You put a plan in place and you'll do the intervention, but you must be strong enough to follow through with that intervention. And there's a whole range of things there with regards to doing an intervention with an addict. So please, 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 it is beyond you as a parent. You aren't going crazy. Ask for help. That is the one thing I would say, ask for help. And remember too, as parents, sometimes we can feel very alone, but you're not alone. An awful lot of parents will enable their adult children, even in a very small way. We can skew our boundaries an awful lot with our children. So, in saying all that, so some ways that you can help, and I always say, with enabling an adult child, you have to start with yourself. You may say, oh, but they have the problem. No, you have the problem. You have the problem and you have to tackle you. You cannot change them. You can never change anybody else. They are now adults. You have no more control over them. They have to take responsibility, and you have to take responsibility for you. And that can be very, very harsh reality for us, that we now have to look to ourselves and to change ourselves. And the key to stop enabling our adult children is in fact changing ourselves. So some ways we can do that. As I said before, we can ask for help. Always, and I will bang on about this always, if your self-care is not there, guys, you're doing nobody else a favour. You're certainly not doing yourself a favour. You have to have your self-care in place. You have to be honest with yourself. If you are not honest with yourself, and if you cannot stop and think and say, okay, yes, I am enabling my adult child, then there is no way forward. Absolutely no way forward. You have to be very honest with yourself. And I go into a bit more detail in the blog about that. Be kind to yourself, start to show yourself a bit more compassion. You've done the best you can right up until now. You did the best you can. And all you can do is have compassion for yourself, be good to yourself, forgive yourself, and now is time to learn. Learn and move forward. Of course, you'll have to set boundaries. If you are enabling your adult child, I can tell you now straight up, your boundaries are skewed. You have to look at your own boundaries, and you must start setting healthy boundaries in a relationship. And I've talked about this before, setting healthy boundaries in a relationship. And I know the one I have up there is all about intimate relationships, but you can adapt it and use it for dealing with any other adult in your life. So, just read through that blog on setting healthy boundaries in relationships. And I think I did do a Facebook Live on it. So do have a look at that and see, can you adjust it? And you should be able to adjust it fairly easily. It's a lot of common sense, and do that and start setting those healthy boundaries. And part of that setting the healthy boundaries is to learn to say the word no. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. No is a full sentence and a full statement. It requires no explanation. And if you have to put that word no up all over your house until you get it into your head, I'm telling you now, that's the best thing you could do for yourself, is learning to say the word no. Because saying the word yes, if you are an enabler, is not the best thing for the other person. Constantly saying yes to the other person allows them not to grow up. It allows them to use and abuse you, have no respect for you, and really you have no respect for them. So saying yes to somebody is not always the best thing for them. So get that word no and plaster it all over your house if you have to, particularly anywhere you're going to be standing. If you're answering a phone, that they'll ring you. I know you're on your mobile, but even put it as a screensaver on your phone. Put it up there and go no on your phone, so that you know when you answer that call, you're not going to say enable your adult child, but maybe you're working on not enabling a colleague. Maybe you're not you don't want to enable a boss. Maybe you don't want to enable somebody else in your life. And sometimes it's easier to start with the other people than to start with our children. So if you are an enabler, you're more likely to be enabling other people as well. So think about that. Think about, who else am I enabling? And maybe start with the least or the person on the list that you're most likely or that you can say no to. So start there. Think about where you can start. And as I said, change your point of view. You're looking at these people and you're seeing them as unable to do things for themselves. They are unable to take responsibility. They are unable to clean up their own messes. That's very disrespectful. And I think if you stopped and thought about it, and we don't, as parents we tend not to, we don't see it as disrespect. We don't see it, we think we're doing the best for them by doing this. And in fact, as I said, we're not. So think about it. How can I change my point of view? What is my point of view? How do I feel about these children? What do I want for them long term? And of course, we want them to be independent. Of course, we want to, be able to stand on their own 2 feet when we're gone. And we're not always going to be there for them. There are going to be times in their lives when they're going to have to face the consequences or face up to responsibility. And you're not going to be there. I'm not going to be there for my kids. They're just going to have to do it. We've all had to do it as adults. So think about that. 2 big ones left to talk about this morning, and that is closing the parental ATM. Sometimes saying no can be hard. I would have my excuses ready. I have to talk to your dad, or I have to talk to your mum, or I have to just check if I got that money. I don't think I have that money. I don't have that money. Maybe that's, if you can't just say no and leave it at that, then think up a list of excuses and have them ready and put them up. Put them somewhere you're going to see them. So that when you're asked, can I have the lend of? Can I have? Because if they say, can you have the lend of? They're probably not going to, they're not going to pay you back. If they haven't paid you back before, they're not going to pay you back in the future. So closing the ATM is very important. It is one of the first things maybe you should think about doing after you learn to say no. And then enough is enough. Learning enough is enough is all about if they are being disrespectful, and as I said about the domestic violence, you deserve to be safe in your own home. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to not fear that call from your child. So again, I go back to the first point on helping yourself. Ask for help. It's time to ask for help. And that may be in the form of getting a protection order, a barring order. It may be reaching out to Women's Aid, or a Men, which is the organisation in Ireland for men. So, or talking to the FLAC solicitors through the Citizens Advice. They will give you some free legal advice there. Talking to MABS, maybe that's Money Advisory Bureau. Reaching out and getting help and saying, okay, enough is enough. I've had enough. You're drawing the line in the sand and going, that's it, no more. They have to stand on their own feet, and I'm going to stop enabling them. Now, I have a whole other half of the blog, and that is all about how you can help your child without enabling them. So do check it out. It's at www.dbpsychologyservices.com. And I will say good morning, as always, to Deirdre, who's on here every single week, very faithful, and Colette and Jennifer and Kim, who are also on. And thank you all for listening. And Monday's blog is all about tantrums in toddlers. So that might be of interest again for parents. Of the other end, the starting, the 1 to 3 year olds. So it's actually not a very long blog this week. So that's out on Monday, and I will see you again next week, and I'll talk about temper tantrums in toddlers. And thank you all for listening.